Welcome to Backpacker Radio, presented by The Trek. I'm your co-host, Zach Badger Davis. Sitting to my right is...
Hi, I'm Juliana Chauncey, a.k.a. Chaunce.
Few reminders before we get to today's very informational and awesome interview. The first is, I'm very excited for this one. In the next few months or so, we're going to be hiring our second full-time position at The Trek. This is going to be sort of a hybrid, tribrid, brand marketing and community specialist. That's the working title for right now. But in a nutshell, if you have some marketing chops, you are a thru hiker, and you love what we do here at The Trek, please apply for this position. I know it'll be a hot one. Obviously, the full-time openings don't come around here very often. We're not going to be opening this application process probably for a couple weeks or so. So be sure to subscribe to The Trek's newsletter to make sure that you don't miss the notification when this application opens up. The next one I want to talk about is we're going to be bringing our second live podcast of the year. This one is not going to be in Denver. Chauncey, where's this one going to be?
We are going to Austin, which I have never been to.
Austin is a good time. Come hungry.
I can't wait.
Yeah. What's your go-to barbecue?
I like pulled pork, but I'm not a huge sandwich person because I don't like when it falls off. I start to get very stressed out, and if it leaks down my hands, I get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So I like pulled pork with a fork, and I love a piece of cornbread.
Same I am. Green eggs and ham.
Yeah. And you know this from the hiker meetups we do at Golden Mill. I am a cornbread hoe.
You are a cornbread hoe. We've all been saying that about you.
Yes. It's about time the world knows.
Yeah. Well, Austin does brisket amazingly, so definitely going to be a heavy brisket trip for at least me. But very excited for this one. This one will be going on sometime in the range of the first week of November. Still confirming those details, but if you're in the Austin area and you like what we do, please also subscribe to the newsletter to ensure that you don't miss the notification for when that goes out. And lastly, but not leastly, if you guys enjoy what you hear on Backpacker Radio, that sounded weird. Here, but it works.
Here.
Please consider supporting us on Patreon.
We put out new episodes every month, at least one a month, and we have started to incorporate our guests in them more when we have a lot of things to talk about and not enough time on an episode. Sometimes we'll pick something super specific that they are good at or passionate about, and we will do a deeper dive on that on the Patreon, which is a fun way to get a little more when you run out of, the 4 hours of episode that we put out each week.
Yeah. And also supporting us on Patreon, as Chauncey aptly pointed out previously, is that supporting us on Patreon allows us to financially support our guests. They get paid to do those bonus interviews. So if you want to support both the podcast and the interview guests, that is an excellent way to do so. We also do fun little extras. We recently did a video of us doing a drinking game with Horsepower. Chauncey pointed out that we have a video of us doing the cinnamon challenge, which is now many years old.
Which I crushed.
Yeah.
That's from 2018 or 2018?
Had to have been.
Yeah, it had to have been. It was in the old
house
guest room.
Yeah.
And Moose Juice did a shoey out of my AT shoes.
Yeah.
On one.
We recently released a collection of our Triple Crown episodes over the span of 20 episodes. So if you guys like Triple Crowns, you get a lot of that.
Another oldie but goodie is if you're familiar with the brand Hiker Kind that has taken the internet by storm these days, the founder of the company came on before she hiked the Colorado Trail.
Yeah.
And she
interviewed us, essentially.
Yeah, we gave her advice, but she was on it.
Yeah.
That was kind of cool.
That was cool. So, yeah. Moral of the story is if you want some additional content and or you want to support the podcast, head on over to patreon.com/backpackerradio. Okay, let's get right to today's interview with my old pal, Dr. Katie Manno. We are joined by Dr. Katie Manno, a longtime pal, probably the person that we've interviewed that I've known the longest in the history of this podcast. I'm trying to go back. We interviewed Melissa, who I met on the AT 2011. So I think you're easily eclipsing that record.
Wow, I already have a record?
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think. We've probably known each other since, 2001? Somewhere in that range?
Yeah, your freshman year of college.
Yeah.
Which is...
Oh, I guess that would be 2004.
Okay, yeah, you're right. 2004.
Yeah.
The school chunks.
Yes.
Are hard to remember.
So, yeah, new record here, but this will be a fun science-based podcast. I'm very much looking forward to this. Dr. Katie Manno is a dermatologist based in Reno, Nevada, and I just want to jump right into it. When did you know that you wanted to be a doctor?
Oh, I probably since I was young in some capacity. My grandpa was a doctor, so he was probably the only person that was in medicine that I looked up to, I suppose, in my family. But he was probably the jumping point, and then I just always liked science, and college kind of led me to pre-med, I guess. And yeah, I've kind of forever. It wasn't like an aha moment.
Yeah.
Really.
And undergrad was University of Michigan?
Yes.
Remind me where medical school was.
Medical school was at Rush Medical College in Chicago, and then my residency in dermatology was at Cook County Hospital.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I know, obviously, when you go to medical school, I would say, from my understanding, is not everyone knows what field of medicine they want to go into. At what point did you know that you wanted to go into dermatology?
Late. I went into med school thinking I wanted to go into orthopedic surgery, actually, because I was really into working out and sports. And so I thought that sports medicine direction would be really cool and surgery would be sort of my speed. But I realized that I really liked clinic and long-term patient relationships, which is more like family medicine, internal medicine, where you're seeing people for a long time. And it's really cool that dermatology is kind of similar, that you have long relationships with people where you're doing preventative medicine and care in a specialty. So I switched like third year. Yeah.
Why not family medicine? And maybe I know the answer to this, because if it was me in that situation, I know that other medical fields compensate better. Is that part of it?
No, that wasn't it. I actually came to it from a procedural standpoint because I was initially interested in surgery. I saw that there was this Mohs surgery, which is a procedure that you use to treat skin cancer.
I'm well aware of this one.
Yeah. And so I said, this is really cool. It's a very procedural based specialty, but it's outpatient. You're doing a lot of preventative care. And so there's some people that like to be generalists and some people that like to be a little bit more specialized. And I think from the get-go, I knew I kind of wanted to be specialized, and I liked that this was a specialized field with a lot of variety of things you could do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When my mom talks to people, especially people in relationships or marriages, and they know what she does for a living, they get self-conscious that she's like psychoanalyzing their relationship. When you're looking at someone having a conversation, are you like analyzing their skin?
I was going to say you have okay. No, I mean, sometimes I feel like I switch that off a little bit.
Yeah.
But there's definitely times, I mean, I'm looking at people's backs when it's summer and, I see people's backs. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I remember initially I would be nervous about saying something to somebody, and it doesn't come up that often, but if you see something crazy, then yeah. But I'm not always analyzing.
Yeah.
No.
It's unfortunate that my co-host Juliana is not here for this one, because she, like me, is a ginger, and she told me that she's never seen a dermatologist in her life.
Really?
Yeah.
She lives here?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's wild.
Yeah, she's an Italian ginger, so I think she's got a little bit better of a genetic shakeup than I do, but still probably some nasty stuff hanging out under the hood there.
Yeah, I have Italian in my family, and that's pretty much dominated, but my sister just had a baby, and she is a little carrot top. She is redhead. It's super cute. So, but we need more sun protection.
Okay, cool. I want to jump right into the thick of the trail-related questions here. And the first question is obvious, and I think this is something that I've encountered a lot in my experience on trail, is people are very lackadaisical when it comes to any sort of sun protection on trail, at least the people that I've been exposed to. I think I've got the scars literally to show this, but I certainly was that way for a long time too. I just was working under the belief that we are organisms that have evolved underneath the sun. How could this thing in the sky possibly be bad for us? And I now have a different view of that, given all my time at dermatology. But can you give us a more scientific explanation on the risks and consequences of not taking sun protection seriously?
Yeah, I mean, the main one is skin cancer, right? So skin cancer is the most common type of cancer in the U.S. and I think worldwide. 1 in 5 people will probably end up having some type of skin cancer over the course of their life. So it's going to affect you or somebody you know for sure. So that's the big one. And then aging, I think the vast majority of skin aging is because of actinic or solar damage. And so those are kind of the number 1 and number 2 things. And this is so actually appropriate, I just realized, because May is Skin Cancer Awareness Month. So yeah, skin cancer is what you're kind of preventing ultimately by using sun protection.
Yeah. And is this, I know the answer to this vaguely, but not specifically. Obviously, this is more true for someone like me than someone like you, that you have to be more cautious of sun protection if you are fair-skinned. But I guess walk us through, if you're very dark-skinned, is this something that you have to contemplate, or is this only... I don't know how to phrase the question.
Yeah, not as much, actually. I mean, anybody can definitely get skin cancer. The ones that are related to sun exposure are definitely going to be more prevalent in people in fair skin tones. So there's definitely a whole spectrum of skin types, obviously, and the more pigment you have in your skin, or more melanin, is what is protecting you from sun exposure, the less likely you are to get a skin cancer. But people that have darker skin tones still definitely get skin cancer. Melanoma, which is the scariest one of the main 3, can happen in dark skin patients. It's genetic in a lot of those cases. And in fact, Bob Marley died of it.
Did not know that.
Yeah. So he died of metastatic melanoma that started on his foot.
Huh.
So, yeah.
On his foot. I guess reggae probably barefoot all the time.
Yeah, maybe. But we actually I don't think we know exactly why darker skin types get it, because they tend to be hands and feet or nails. More so than your classic ones you think about on the head and neck or back or something in somebody that has fair skin.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So you said it's genetic, but that doesn't mean that it's predetermined that if it's in your genetics that you're going to get it. Sun protection will prevent against that, correct?
That's your biggest modifiable risk factor, for sure. There's lots of things that go into developing one, and unfortunately or fortunately, sun is the biggest one that you can have an effect on. So,
I remember a colleague of mine at Tech Cocktail, my previous industry, she took sun protection very seriously. And at the time, I would chuckle to myself at like how neurotic she was about it. Like we would walk, our company was based in Las Vegas, and she'd walk around with a sun umbrella. Looking back at that, I now realize that she was closer to being right than I was by a lot. Is it possible that if you take sun protection to that degree that you're completely free of any risk of skin cancer?
Not free. But if you're, probably pretty close. It's UV that's causing the damage that causes these skin cancers. There's a direct correlation with basal cell carcinomas and squamous cell carcinomas and the majority of the degree melanoma. That's what causes it. So if you're sitting in a black box, you're probably maybe not going to be that 1 in 5 that gets skin cancer.
Yeah.
So,
So I've always worked with the assumption that if you avoid getting sunburnt, you're doing it correctly. Like a light tan is the correct amount of sun. This is in my head, not according to science. I'm curious to know if there's any truth in that. Like, if you've avoided a sunburnt, have you done it to a correct degree, or do you not want any sort of sun coloring of your skin whatsoever?
So sunburn is the worst for sure. You can feel that. So sunburns are usually caused by UVB rays. So you have UVA and UVB that are kind of getting to your skin. And that's what causes either tanning or sunburn, and UVB causes the burns usually. Sunburn is what's going to cause like the direct DNA damage to lead to skin cancers. But tanning is still damage. That's kind of more the UVA rays. And what's happening is you tan because your skin is being exposed to that dose of UV radiation and saying, oh my gosh, we have something coming into our cells that's damaging us, we need to create more melanin to protect us. So you've already damaged yourself, and you're creating the melanin and that color as like a compensation for protecting yourself from more damage. So
interesting. So, and it's sort of a issue of delayed gratification, because I know the general perception is that like if you're tan you're sexy, and you get the
not anymore.
That's not true anymore.
I mean, I guess I live in a very specific world, but no.
In the dermatology world, tans are very unsexy. But I think from a general perspective, people pursue tans because it makes them look better.
Right.
But the consequence there is not only an increased risk of skin cancer, but also it speeds up your aging.
Yeah.
What's the perception of like spray tans in the dermatology world? Is that a big thumbs up?
Yeah. I mean, you could go down a rabbit hole of like, I don't know what chemicals maybe they're using. I'm not a spray tan expert by any means, but I am so pro spray tan over real tan. I actually just had a patient come in and tell me that her daughter is a cheerleader, and they actually want them to have color. So the whole cheerleading team, they're 15, we're going to go to a tanning bed, which is just, so awful to get that color. And so the mom had skin cancer. And so she started a tanning, like a spray tanning business, so she could do that for her kids. And then a bunch of people come to her. So I think it's fine. I mean, if you want that color and you want to, there's some pretty nice ways to do it now that don't look bad. And so if you want that color, that's probably a really good way to do it.
Yeah. Speaking of chemicals, let's talk about sunscreen.
Yeah.
So I know I was originally very resistant to sunscreen, and I think this is like the previous subject we were just talking about. A lot of people in the backpacking world are resistant to it because they don't want to put an outside chemical on their skin. Is there any reason to be legitimately skeptical of applying sunscreen? Like, is the cure worse than the disease? I guess. No, that's not the right saying. What's the saying here?
Is the benefit better, or is the risk of the sunscreen?
Okay,
I hear you. Risk better than the reward.
Right.
No. I mean, it is proven that sunscreen protects you from skin cancer. It decreases the incidence of squamous cell and melanomas in studies over and over again. So, I mean, there are chemicals in sunscreens, and there have been some studies that have come out in vitro and in vivo and like rat studies that were suggestive of problems, but none of that has been proven in humans up to this point. That being said, there are some question marks still out there. I mean, there are chemicals that actually pretty much all the chemicals that are being used for sunscreens are still sort of out there in the FDA as like need to be studied more probably versus the mineral or inorganic ingredients, which are generally regarded as safe and effective by the FDA. So those I think are a totally green light. The other ones, to my knowledge, and for what I recommend and what I use myself, are fine, and I use them. But in the future, I don't know, maybe there will be studies that show that there are one or two ingredients that maybe we should steer clear of, or I don't, use less in less concentration.
Yeah.
I suppose.
Are there any chemicals in particular that you are especially skeptical of? Maybe not necessarily that we know today are definitively bad, but you like wouldn't be surprised if the FDA came out in 10 years and said like, yeah, this is linked to XYZ cancer.
Yeah. Well, the one that was the one that's really kind of been in the spotlight for that is oxybenzone. There was a study in rats that they developed like uterine tumors and other, like they were it was a hormone disruptor, basically. And so that one looked like if you took it in high enough doses that it would cause problems. But if you did the math for how much that the rats were given, according to the dermatology study that kind of came out to sort of reevaluate that data, you'd have to apply sunscreen over your whole body for like hundreds of years. So, or drink it or something. So I mean, and the thing is, those ingredients are not just in sunscreens too. Like they're in like nail polish and other things that you would come across. I mean, obviously that's just your nails versus like putting something all over your body. But so that one is kind of been sort of the key one that's been focused on. But still, I don't know if they're ever going to prove that it's going to cause enough damage in a human.
It seems like something like that is tough to prove, right?
Yeah.
Like, because to coordinate that study, I don't even know how you would go about that.
No. Yeah.
So I guess like rat studies is the best that we have, but to your point, there's never going to be like a human application to the same dosage response.
No. So I mean, if you're skeptical, which I totally appreciate, I mean, it's caused problems in rats, and in addition to that, that class of sunscreen actually is kind of the leading cause of contact dermatitis, so like rashes and stuff too. So that's a risk with the chemical blockers or chemical ingredients as well, is that they can cause allergies for people. So that's another downside of them. Then I would just say you would probably be safest sticking with your zinc oxide and your titanium dioxide. Those are the really simple, easy to find, what are called mineral to a lot of people, or physical or inorganic ingredients that are considered very safe.
Yeah. Do you avoid chemical sunscreens? And if so, are there like a certain category of chemical sunscreens that you personally avoid?
I really don't myself. If I'm going to be out hiking or, doing something outside for a really long time, I generally tend to use the inorganic ones myself. I just feel like maybe they feel a little bit more protective to me. They both act very similarly, actually, but there is a little component of the zinc and titanium ones that do reflect a little bit of rays off of you rather than just absorb everything and change it to make it less damaging. So in my head, I like the idea that there's like a little bit of almost like a blocking effect with those ones. And they tend to kind of stay on. The downside being that there's those white casts that you get sometimes, but there's nanoparticle ones now that rub in a little bit better. There's obviously questions with the nanoparticles too, if you want to go down that rabbit hole, but I don't think they want those with like in Hawaii. I think even that's an issue. They don't really like the nanoparticles as much as the regular zinc oxide and titanium dioxide.
Because that's what's killing the coral.
Well, the real thing that they don't like is the chemical ingredients. Okay. So those are the oxybenzone, the avobenzone, and all those ones. So the physical blockers, the zincs and titaniums, are the ones that you buy in Hawaii. But they, I think, I might be incorrect about this, but I think they also don't really like it when they're nanoparticles either.
Interesting.
So you're casty white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I believe I got the Elta MD sunscreen based on your recommendation. Yeah. And I feel like that one rubs in pretty well. Is that using the nanoparticle?
So that one's a combination sunscreen. Okay. So it's got both physical and chemical ingredients. So it's got zinc, and then I believe it's octinoxate is in that too. So it's got a little chemical ingredient which makes it rub in better. And that's what a lot of those nice professional grade sunscreens do, is they will combine the two, because then it does rub in a little bit better. But there are a lot of really elegant feeling pure physical ones now that are actually not too bad. So
are there any chemical sunscreens that use chemicals that have been proven without a doubt to be safe? Like, I know you mentioned the oxybenzone.
Oxybenzone,
that like there's maybe a slight question mark there. Are there any of these popular chemicals that have like are unquestioned safe amongst the dermatology community?
I would say most dermatologists would say all of these are still considered, they haven't been ruled out as unsafe. But unfortunately, if you're going by the book, the FDA hasn't given a stamp of totally safe on any of them. The only two that have it are zinc and titanium.
What will it take to get there?
More studies, I guess.
Yeah.
And they said that they were going to do this years ago, and then I don't know if COVID caused the lagging or what, but there just hasn't been more data that's come out about it.
Yeah. Is there any chatter about when or if that'll happen?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm sure somebody in the academy is looking into that.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've talked about the two different categories of sunscreens, both chemical and mineral based. You mentioned when you're out on trail, you like to use inorganic. Does that mean a chemical?
Yeah. So chemical is organic, and then physical or mineral is inorganic.
Oh, okay.
So those metal-based ones.
So
I use like the zinc and titanium ones usually.
Yeah. Are you ever self-conscious about the fact that those don't rub in?
Well, it kind of depends. Not really.
Yeah. You're a dermatologist, so like if
yeah.
anyone should be like, whatever, I care about my skin, it's you.
But I care. I mean, I care about the way it feels. Like I've picked a couple that I really like the Elta that you were talking about.
Yeah.
No affiliation,
Yeah.
if I have to say that. But they have a sport sunscreen that's a mineral-based one that you still have to kind of work a little bit to get it in, but I actually think that one feels really nice.
Yeah.
So I use that one a lot. If I really just don't care, if I'm backpacking, then I will use like Blue Lizard or something like that. So kind of just depends on the situation. Yeah.
Yeah, I wish that Elta offered. So Sawyer, previous sponsor of ours, has a little like 1 ounce tube of sunscreen that they sell, and I couldn't tell you a single ingredient in it. I just know that it's sunscreen, but I love it just from the practicality of it's lightweight. It's like the right amount to get you to your next resupply. I wish that Elta offered something like that.
Yeah.
On that subject, is there a specific sunscreen that you could recommend to the aspiring backpackers out there? One that I guess we'll break it into 2 categories: somebody that is not budget sensitive and someone that is.
Well, I think Blue Lizard is pretty affordable, and that comes in those little sticks, which I think are pretty easy to carry with you. I think it's less than 2 ounces sometimes.
The biggest thing is just not carrying around like a 4 ounce tube of something because it's excessive, and also the container itself can be on the heavier side. Just finding something that is the appropriate amount to get you either to the next resupply or maybe a couple resupplies. Like that's key.
I think Blue Lizard makes a pretty good size little stick. Supergoop is a brand that makes this one called Play that also makes a small portable sort of stick. It's a little bit more expensive, but that one's good too. And Sunbum makes a tiny one that I think would be probably nice to carry with you. That's pretty small.
So is there one, like if you were stranded on an island and you can only use one sunscreen for the rest of time, what are you going with? And you also mentioned with the Elta that you don't have any affiliations. Do you have affiliations with any? Okay, so we'll get that out there that you're not being tampered with.
No. If I could be So if you're stranded on an island, obviously I'm going to want that probably heavy duty sunscreen. So I would probably say I'd either do Blue Lizard or Sunbum.
Okay.
Myself. And that would probably be mineral for both of those brands. Blue Lizard is primarily all mineral based. Sunbum you can get chemical or physical, but I guess if we're talking about me living on an island for potentially up to 100 years and we're talking back about those chemicals that you're rubbing on every single day, I think probably I'd do a mineral one myself.
Okay. My question escaped me. Hopefully it'll come back to me. Okay. So there's I don't know if it's a wives' tale or maybe there's truth in this, but above a certain SPF, it's all the same. I forget what the number was, 30, 50, but is there any truth to that? Like if applying a SPF 30 is the same thing as applying an SPF 80?
Yeah, so there's a little truth to that. So higher is a little bit better. Once you get above 50, it's pretty minimal difference as long as you're using it the right way, basically, too. Because the way SPF was studied is using it in like the most ideal conditions where someone's applying it perfectly and reapplying it as exactly as they're supposed to. So because in the real world no one does that, we usually say higher is probably going to be a little better because you're going to get a little bonus. But if you SPF 30 is supposed to be blocking about like 97%. 50 is 98, and then anything above that is, kind of cream cheese. So for a while there was some talk about the FDA doing like things should only be labeled as 50 plus, or there was going to be a 60 or 65 plus. I'm still seeing lots of 70s and 100s everywhere. But I think if you're at 50, that's great. Daily, I usually say, I put sunscreen on every day, and I put on my Elta. The Elta is like a 40 or 46, depending on which one you're using. But a 30 is great. I think 30 is probably your minimum that you want to start with.
You mentioned that the recommendations are based on the assumption of perfect application. What is perfect application?
So a perfect application is for an average sized person to be using a shot glass amount of sunscreen for their whole body.
That's a lot. I'm definitely not doing that.
Yeah.
And I'm bigger than average. Shit.
Yeah. And about a quarter size, like a good, like fatty quarter size for your face.
Okay. So the shot glass is for the full body.
Yeah.
So this is like I'm out in a bikini on the beach.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I've got pretty good sun coverage, then obviously that shot glass doesn't apply.
Yeah. I'll hear people say like, oh, you should really be going through your sunscreen so quickly.
Yeah.
Like people say that, oh yeah, I go out on a boat, every day in the summer, and I still have sunscreen on there from like last season. I was like, you should have gone through so many bottles of sunscreen in just that one season.
Yeah.
But
A quarter for your face. Yeah, I'm not doing that. So I need to up
It's
my
a lot.
game.
Yeah. I usually say to people when I talk to patients about it, because it just feels like a ton, that realistically in my head, the best way to do it is like kind of apply it once and then do it again instead of gooping on a whole bunch the first time and making a big mess of it, which takes a little more time. But
this is good to hear, because I'm over here thinking like I'm good at sun now, and like obviously I'm still way underdoing it.
Yeah, most people are.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe I'm rethinking my stance on the 1 ounce tube being enough to get you from one resupply to the next, because by the sounds of it, like that is probably, I guess 1 ounce is less than a shot glass if the liquid is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would imagine in your world, the better way to go. I mean, I know you're all about weight and stuff, but you could repurpose layers because like protective clothing is probably.
Yeah. So perfect segue to the next category here is sun protective clothing. For you personally, do you have a preference on when you're out on trail using like a sun hoodie and long pants and gloves? Like, I don't know how extreme you go versus, from my perspective, the reason why I prefer sunscreen is I just overheat so quickly. I'm a very hairy guy and I produce a lot of heat. I would rather deal with creams and being slimy than just like being uncomfortable and sweaty all the time, to as much of a degree as I can control.
Yeah.
From your standpoint, like what is your go-to method?
I'm always wearing a hoodie. Because I feel like there's so many nice lightweight ones now, that's just the easiest way. Like if we're out fishing, I'll be wearing a hoodie and a baseball, because a baseball cap's not giving you protection either. I mean, just looking at the shadow on your face right now, you're getting like this triangle, right? And so your ears, your cheeks, your neck, and that's so classic for men. Like they'll come in and they like wear a hat all the time. It's like, so the top of their head's great, their forehead's fine, but your ears and neck and lower face are just toast. So, so if you're wearing a hoodie, that's like the one situation where, a baseball cap is probably going to be sufficient. But I wear a hoodie. And then I am a lot of times in shorts and socks, so I don't do the whole pants thing. And I just kind of, because for me, the area I care the least about looking kind of pasty and feeling that sort of white castiness is my legs. So it's like really easy for me to just lather up on my legs and protect the top with the sunglasses, the hat, and the hoodie.
I don't know if this is something they teach in dermatology school. Maybe they do, but I feel like the areas where I'm densely hairy, like with a lot of body hair, primarily like my calves, historically, I really haven't needed to apply sunscreen. Is that something that is covered in dermatology school? Because like I have gotten burns on my legs, obviously, but I feel like after a week or two on trail, if I can go the entire day with a lot of sun exposure and not even have like a tan on my legs.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it the same way as your head, I mean, the more hair you have, the more, there's going to be protection there in some capacity. The more pigment you have in the hair, the more protective it's going to be too. So anything like that is going to act a little bit as a shield, but not.
I should be putting sunscreen on my legs.
And that's actually a thing just in general people don't do as much is their legs. And that's actually, according to the original paper, the place where women get melanoma the most is their lower legs. Men is their back. I think probably if you, I mean, who knows? I was talking about this with a colleague the other day. Now, because that paper is kind of old, there's probably going to be a lot more cases on the head and neck area melanoma now. But historically, men it's the back and women it's the lower legs.
Interesting.
Yeah.
guess one area where backpackers probably aren't
Yeah, there you
at
go.
higher risk.
Yeah, fair enough.
Their backs are covered.
Uh-huh.
Sun protection clothing. My biggest question here is that I know clothing has various UPF ratings. That's something that personally I've never paid attention to, because I feel like if I've got clothes on, I don't think I've ever gotten even a remote burn underneath clothing of any kind, whether it was like UPF 15 or UPF, insert the number. Is something being covered by clothing satisfactory enough, or should you be looking for something with a higher UPF rating?
I think if you're going to be out for a long time, you should be looking for the UPF rating. I mean, any clothing is going to be some protection. Like I think a white t-shirt is a UPF of 7 or something like that.
Wow.
Some around there. And then if you get it wet, I think it drops it down to like a 3. So if you're
no
sweating,
wet t-shirt contest.
yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, none of those, or sweating, or if it's so like the properties of it matter, and then so a lot of things go into the UPF factor. And what's cool about UPF is obviously when you're wearing a piece of clothing, it's blocking. UPF is for UVA and UVB, so that's for the tanning and the burning rays, basically. Versus SPF for sunscreen is actually just for UVB rays. So just to touch on that, I don't know if we're going back to sunscreen, but when you are looking for a sunscreen, you want an SPF of at least 30 to 50, and then you also want it to say broad spectrum, because that means there's UVA protection in it too. But
maybe I missed that from earlier. So are you saying that sunscreen is just going to protect against the rays that give you burns, but you can still get a tan?
No. So just the SPF rating on it is specifically for the UVB.
Got it.
But
okay.
most sunscreens that you buy now are most of them are going to say broad spectrum. It's rare I see one without it, but you want to look for that word, because that means it has protection for both the UVB, which is rated in the SPF, but also the UVA, which causes the sort of aging skin.
Why don't they rate it for the UVA? Is it just because the UVB is so much more important?
Well, because because the way they make the SPF rating is based on your minimum erythema dose or erythematous dose, so the minimum amount of sun it takes to burn. And that's how they come up with that number. So they compare, protected skin, how much time it takes it to burn versus unprotected skin. Yeah. And that's how you get the SPF number. And the burn is from UVB.
Yeah. Okay.
Whereas UPF in clothing is for all of it. So that's nice.
Yeah.
So UPF of 50 is saying that, again, it's blocking about 98% or 1/50th of the sun rays are getting through. Versus like 1/30th for 30. Yeah. So if you think about that, I mean, because the math is kind of weird, but I think it's around like 97% for UPF 30 versus 98, and that doesn't sound like much, but it's 1/50th versus 1/30th. So it's actually a big difference between the two.
Especially if you're outside all day, every day, that does add up. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing here is that anyone backpacking should be looking at the UPF and should be looking at a minimum of UPF 50.
I mean, if I were walking on a trail, that's what I'd be looking for.
Yeah.
I mean, you could definitely get 30s. I'd say a lot of the outdoor, if you're getting a UPF shirt, a lot of them are like at 50. That's just kind of what's made.
Yeah.
But then if it's just your natural, your normal clothing, they're like polyester and nylon are going to be more protective than like cotton. So you could look at ingredients, and then tighter things that are stretching more, obviously you're going to let more through than if you wear loose fitting clothing and stuff. So there's a couple different factors, but yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. So we can put aside the cotton stuff, because our audience knows that cotton kills. They're not wearing cotton, at least in a backpacking context. So I guess what are the factors that determine the UPF rating? You mentioned that if it was stretchy, it's probably going to be a lower rating because it's letting through more of the rays. So you want something that doesn't have stretch.
Well, you just want something to be more loose fitting.
Yeah.
So like, don't get something too small, I guess.
Yeah.
Because if something's tight on you, it's not going to be as protective.
Yeah.
Again, if it's wet, that affects it. The specific type of material affects it, and then the UPF is just based on like how tightly woven those fibers are put together.
Yeah. So that's the catch-22 for backpackers.
Right.
The more tightly woven it is, the less breathable it's going to be, and the hotter it's going to be. Does color of the fabric play a role? Because you mentioned that white was...
Yeah, darker is better.
Darker is better.
which is also a problem.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is you want something that is
wear a denim jacket.
Yeah, right.
while
Yeah.
you're hiking.
So yeah, it's tough to find that Goldilocks balance. So
I feel like Patagonia's done a pretty good job. Because my sunshade shirts by Patagonia are lighter in color, but they still have that tighter weave, so they'll have the UPF rating that's good, and I feel like they're pretty lightweight. Granted, I'm not walking with a backpack on my back but I've gone on backpacking trips with it, and it's pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
And Athleta does nice ones for women. Outdoor Research, REI even has some good ones. And then there's like a whole realm of sunshade shirts that are more kind of leisure outdoor wear. But yeah, I guess that probably wouldn't be as good for your audience.
If somebody is applying sunscreen perfectly, is that going to be as good in your opinion as always wearing like a UPF 50 sun hoodie?
If you're perfect at it, then in theory that should do the trick. But I think generally what we all recommend is it should be a combination of a whole bunch of things for sun protection.
Yeah.
Using clothing when you can't be perfect, sunscreen when you're in a swimsuit, avoiding trying to be in like the direct sun when it's like noon, they say 10 to 4. I know, again, when you're hiking, you can't do that, but being mindful of even where you're walking, if you have shade available to you versus sun, which I know is not the case in some situations. But yeah, so if you were perfect, going back to your question, if you were absolutely perfect, then yeah, you'd be fine. But the problem is in your situation, I can't imagine people are perfect and then you're sweating it off or rubbing it off or, so that can be tough.
Let's say you have an 18-year-old child that is going to listen to your demands and they're setting out to hike the PCT. What are the specifics that you're sending them out with in terms of clothing and or sunscreen?
Yeah. I would send them, like I said, I'd send them out with a couple probably sticks or tubes of Blue Lizard. I would send them out. I love my Patagonia sunshade shirt. I love it. And then some sort of either broad brim hat and sunglasses and maybe gloves. I don't know. That's probably too much. I guess I
actually wore gloves.
You do?
I think it was on the PCT. I know I've worn gloves in the past. It wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
I'd honestly rather wear gloves than a full sun hoodie.
Yeah.
Like my hands are not going to overheat the way that like my upper arms are. But
yeah.
Yeah.
You really think that the
it looks very dorky. I should also say that I used you'll like this, a sun umbrella.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because for me, that's the ultimate compromise. Like I get shade. I still get the airflow.
Yeah.
It's a little bit cumbersome to deal with, especially if it's even like a little bit windy. It turns into a sail.
Yeah.
But in unwindy circumstances, it's the best. Like you get shade and the airflow. It's the perfect thing of all worlds. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is probably a question that I should have asked at the top when we were talking about the risks, but you mentioned that obviously 20% of people are going to get skin cancer in their life, and that melanoma is the worst of them. Walk us through what melanoma is, the survival rates, like, let's scare people a little bit is what I'm trying to get at.
Well, so melanoma luckily is not the most, so the top 3 skin cancers that we see in clinic all day long are basal cell carcinoma or basal cell skin cancer, squamous cell carcinoma, and melanoma. Basal cell is the most common, squamous is number 2, and melanoma is 3. Basal cell is rarely ever a problem for anybody. It's, it is because you need surgery and you need to have it treated, but it's not one that's generally going to ever spread anywhere else in your body or ever affect life expectancy or anything like that. It's one that's just...
I can't remember if you said this or someone else said this, but it's something that you die with, not of.
Usually, yeah. But it can be a pretty brutal, and that's what can be a problem is if you let them go, they'll invade further down into tissue and destroy things and get painful and they bleed. And so it can be a very unpleasant thing to deal with. I've seen some very gnarly basal cells, but it's not generally going to kill you.
Yeah.
Squamous cell can, for sure. The vast majority that we see in clinic are still small and easy to manage with surgery or some other treatment. But if those go neglected, those can spread. And those are both very directly correlated to your sun exposure, for sure. And then melanoma is the third most common, but luckily much more rare than the other 2. I think the numbers, if I'm thinking off the top of my head, is 1 in 27 men and 1 in 40 women will get a melanoma. And if it's caught early, survival is excellent. So if it's caught early where it's just on the top layer of your skin, and all you have to do is cut it out, then you have, 99 plus, percent chance of survival. If it's delayed, it drops down to, 68% and lower, depending on how far along it's gone. So the longer it invades down, the more likely it is to spread and kill you. And it does. There's a lot better treatments out now than there used to be for advanced stage melanomas, but it's still very deadly skin cancer.
Why is it so much more common in men? Is there any?
They think. Well, going back to the, it was more commonly found on the back. The back is not seen as easily, and so I think men, for that reason and for other reasons, just in general, present later. Like they don't come in as soon as they see something. They might delay it, or they didn't see it and they didn't come in time. So they think that might be a factor in it.
Is melanoma the most deadly form of skin cancer?
There are other cancers out there that are much more rare, that are bad. Like Jimmy Buffett just died of Merkel cell carcinoma, which is another type of skin cancer. Super rare. I haven't seen one in a year or two. I've only seen maybe 3 or 4 ever since I've been practicing. But that one's a pretty bad one. And then there's a couple other ones out there that are, that most people don't even know about. It's really melanoma that's kind of the one you gotta worry about the most.
And the one that Jimmy Buffett died of, is that caused directly by sun exposure?
Yeah.
All right. This is good reinforcement for listeners and this listener right here. I do have some miscellaneous questions that I'd like to lob your way.
Oh, I want to also point out Bob Marley. I mean, I'm sure people know this about it, but he was 36. So,
wow, damn.
So I'm pretty sure he was 36. He was young, which I remember when Bob Marley died, I was young, and I don't even know how old we were.
Yeah.
Were we even?
I couldn't even put a time step on that.
I was about to say, it's just like something that's been in my...
I'm not connected to the internet.
There you go. But he seemed like, it seemed old to me, like back in the day. But just to reinforce the fact that Merkel cell, which is what Jimmy Buffett died of, tends to be one that affects older people, but melanoma kills young people for sure.
Yeah. I don't remember it because it was 1981.
I was about to say, this is like, okay, thank you.
Okay, miscellaneous questions.
Yeah.
I don't know where I picked this up, and I'm hoping you can tell me that it's wrong. Does sunscreen block vitamin D absorption?
Yes.
It does?
In theory, yeah. Well, not even in theory. It actually does.
Okay.
Because UVB is what's needed to make vitamin D. So that's exactly what sunscreen is designed to block. But this has been a big controversy in the world of sunscreen application, because people are like, you shouldn't use sunscreen because it blocks your vitamin D absorption. There hasn't been any study to prove that anybody that applies sunscreen in a normal fashion is actually putting on enough to block their vitamin D absorption.
So I've heard different terminology with normal application and perfect application. If they're applying it perfectly, are they going to block vitamin D?
Probably. Yes. But then my counterpoint to that would be, because vitamin D is so important, I would never say like, screw the vitamin D.
Right.
But take it orally. I mean, you can take it orally, and you can definitely check your blood work to make sure that you have enough just doing it that way.
Yeah.
I guarantee if you have, the thing about vitamin D is that it's actually a complex process to make it into its active form in your body. So you absorb it through your skin, and then it has to be activated through your liver and your kidneys. So there's there was actually even a study about this, not specifically of this, but like people that are surfers that are out for hours could potentially still be vitamin D deficient if they're not like efficient in making it.
I've heard that about triathletes too.
Yeah. So you're not really guaranteeing yourself that you're going to be fine with your vitamin D if you're just going to be like, well, I'm not going to use sunscreen because I need my vitamin D. I think the risk of that way outweighs the benefit, because you can get your vitamin D orally if you need to, which I definitely do, because I know I'm very sun averse for the most part, to the point where I need it supplemented orally. But yes, short answer to your question, yes, sunscreen blocks UVB rays, which is what you need to make vitamin D.
Is there a safe or even healthy amount of sun exposure without sun protection for the reason of getting vitamin D? Like, does it make sense to spend the first 30 minutes of your day without sun protection and then go crazy beyond that?
There are people that advocate for like 15 minutes of some like just sun exposure without. I can't really stand behind that. I mean, I get the argument for it. If your UV index is low, I guess, and but the problem is, you know, the UVB, which is what makes the vitamin D, is the highest during the middle of the day, and that's like when you're trying to avoid sun exposure.
Yeah.
So there are people that will say, you know, go out and get like 15 minutes of it, and because you really don't need to be out for hours and hours and hours to get the vitamin D. You're
Right.
going to max out with about 15 minutes of it or something like that, depending on the person.
Yeah.
So you could, but I wouldn't be an advocate for it.
Okay, so you can tell me here if I'm fucking up. It sounds like I probably am based on what you just said. But the only time where I don't think about sun protection really at all is when I take Sierra on my morning walk. I do the Huberman thing where I try to get sunlight as early as possible. Like I'll wear a hat, but otherwise, you know, I'm in whatever clothing the temperature dictates, and I'm not putting sunscreen on. Am I fucking up?
Not necessarily. I mean, again, these are like, there's a lot of factors that go into that because, you know, earlier in the morning, you're at low angle, you're not getting a lot of that UVB. The UV index is, I mean, you should probably just check the UV index. If it's like 0 to 2 and it's earlier in the morning, you probably can go a pretty good amount of time without having too much damage. But unfortunately, all UV is damage.
Okay.
Yeah. Besides the awesome benefit of making vitamin D, which is incredibly important for you, but you luckily can take that as a supplement.
Yeah. So you mentioned UV index. I imagine that there are listeners out there that are not familiar with what that is. I only vaguely understand that, but is that simply just a rating of how much UV is in the air at a given time?
It's basically a measure of how much damage you're going to be getting based on the time of day and like how intense the sun is, the cloud coverage, all that stuff that goes into it. So generally earlier in the day, it's probably going to be less than in the middle of the day. And then it also depends again on weather. And it goes from 0 all the way up to 11 plus. 0 to 2 is generally considered you're going to be out and experience minimal damage to your skin. 3 to 5 is moderate, and then 6 to 8, and then 8 to 10, 11 plus. And so the idea behind that roughly is like if you're out in 0 to 2, it would take an average person, which I don't even really know what does that mean, right?
Yeah.
But like up to an hour before they're going to get a bad burn. Like 3 to 5, it'll be like 30 to 45 minutes. 6 to 7 or 6 to 8 would be like, it's going to take 25 minutes. 8 to 10, it's going to take you less than 15 minutes to burn. And then if it's above 10, like 11 plus, you're going to burn in like less than 10 minutes.
Wow.
And that's an average person, whatever.
Yeah.
So
I know you're not a meteorologist, but can you speculate Denver, June, noon, what is like a ballpark of what someone would expect the UV index would be in that situation?
I don't know. It depends. I mean, it's going to be high in the middle of the day. I mean, but here you also have a lot of, you still get a lot of UV through that's one thing that people don't know is like if it's cloudy, they think they don't need sun protection, but UV's getting through a lot of the clouds. So you can get up to 80% of the UV radiation through, depending on what kind of cloud coverage you get. So, and I know June in Denver historically can be kind of stormy and cloudy. So I know that affects it, but it's going to be really high.
So is it conceivable that if it is overcast under the right circumstances, you could still be looking at like a UV 8 or higher?
No comment. I don't really know exactly with that. I'd have to look at that more specifically. But it's high. Yeah. It can be. Mm-hmm.
This is one that hits very close to home for me. I think you had recommended this to me, and then my current local dermatologist also recommended this. But since I've had basal cell carcinoma, both you guys had recommended I take vitamin B3. Mm-hmm. And I'll let you speak to this. What is the benefit of that? And does it stand reason to believe that is basal cell carcinoma possibly just linked to a vitamin deficiency?
That is a really good question. I don't think there's any studies that say there's no studies that would say like a vitamin deficiency is direct causation to a skin cancer, but I know that being vitamin deficient in a lot of ways is going to it's going to lower your body's ability to, those are things that your body needs to be able to perform corrective processes, and your immune system needs. So I think there might be a little data that like your vitamin levels might correlate with like, your body's, it might correlate with cancer potentially, but it's not like knowledge like, oh, if you're vitamin B deficient, you're going to get skin cancer.
Okay.
But what vitamin B3 does is that it helps your body perform those reparative processes. So if you don't have them, then yeah, in theory, you would say like, my body can't repair its DNA as well as it should. So maybe a low vitamin status would be making you more prone to cancer, I guess, to answer your question.
Yeah.
But there's no like, if you're deficient in this vitamin,
Sure.
you're going to get cancer.
Yeah.
But yeah, so B3 is awesome. It's called nicotinamide or niacinamide, which is a derivative of niacin, which is also a supplement out there that you should not take for this, because
I've taken high doses of that. If you take a high dose of that,
yeah,
it's uncomfortable.
It causes terrible flushing.
Yeah.
But nicotinamide or niacinamide, which are both derivatives of vitamin B3, help cellular repair. So it helps your body maintain that energy level to repair the damaging effects of UV on the cellular level. And then it also helps prevent the immunosuppression that happens with UV exposure and like the photo toxic effects. It basically repairs that too. So
I forget exactly what the statistic was about how impactful high doses of it was, but I think it reduced the incidence of BCC for people who had it previously by like
20 to 30%.
Yeah, that's a pretty significant number.
Yeah.
Like, if you could cut the risk down by a third just by taking a supplement, it
Huge.
seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And it's a cheap supplement too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge. That was a super awesome big paper back in, I think it was like 2015 or 2016, and that like changed the game for us, because there's nothing else you could really recommend besides sun protection at that point. And because, like you said, it's very safe. It's a pretty affordable supplement.
Yeah.
I recommend it to everybody.
Yeah. I think one supply is like $10 or it's really cheap.
The thing is though, is that was studied specifically in people that had a history of cancers. So it was like, I think people that had 2 or more basal cells in the past.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure, if just run-of-the-mill person that doesn't have any cancer history or any significant sun exposure is going to have the benefit of it, but I can't imagine it would hurt.
Yeah.
I guess the cost would be the only downside, but it's not super expensive.
I'm allowed to speculate on non-scientific levels because I'm a podcaster, but it seems like people who've had 2 or more are at such a higher risk that it would be good to have that insurance for somebody that hasn't gone through having skin cancers in the past, because it's just, you've got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
It's cheap.
Yeah.
And if it has that impact on people who are at very high risk, it seems plausible that it's going to have a preventative effect, even if you're not at the same level of risk.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Are there other supplements that I or somebody who spends a lot of time in the sun should be taking?
Yeah. There's a really good one called HelioCare, which is Polypodium leucotomus. It's derived from a Central American fern, and it is it helps elevate that threshold of that minimal erythema dose that I was talking about earlier. So that threshold for you to burn, and it's also it's basically an antioxidant. So it's going to help repair cellular damage too. Not like the direct DNA damage. It's more of like repairing or correcting reactive oxygen species, which is things that it helps a lot with photo damage. So it's a pretty safe and affordable supplement too. It's out there on the market as something that you could take every single day. I kind of take it as a vacation supplement. So I'll start taking it maybe like the day before I go to Hawaii, through Hawaii, and then like a couple days after, because it's going to kind of give you a little extra backup protection. I think the sunscreen gurus in the field say it's maybe think of it as giving yourself an extra SPF of like 5 to 8 or something like that on top of what you've already put on. So yeah, that's a good one.
It's nice to have the insurance of something that you take orally and you don't have to think about how long would something like this last? Like, is a dose going to be good for a day-long period?
It's a daily dose.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is it something that we're like, if I know I'm going to be in the sun a lot on Monday and Tuesday, it'll have the benefit if I just take it Monday and Tuesday, or do I
It
need
should.
to
It works. I'd have to look up the half-life again, or how quickly the onset of action is, but I think it's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Like, I think you could do it that day of. I do start the day before, so it's not like something you have to work up in your system for like a month or something like that. It's pretty fast, but I'd have to look up if it's the day or the day before.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's one that you had recommended to me in the past, and I had taken it, and it just fell out of my routine. I literally, as you were giving me the spiel, I ordered it.
Yeah. So polypodium leukotomus is in a lot of different things now. Like it's a common ingredient now, but HelioCare is the brand that was originally on the market. And what's cool about HelioCare is they actually make one that has polypodium leukotomus and nicotinamide in it.
Oh,
so that's
cool.
called HelioCare Advanced.
Yeah.
And so you just have them both in one.
Shit, I might have just gotten the poor man's version of it. I got the other one, so we'll just double dose.
Well, you'll go through it quick, right?
Yeah, that's right. For people who have already put their body through a lot of damage, myself, I know one thing that you had recommended to me was profractional laser. Mm-hmm. Can you walk through the options available to people for those who have fucked up a lot in the past?
Well, I mean, the number one thing if you fucked up a lot in the past is go see your dermatologist. I mean, because if the primary things with skin cancer are prevention and early detection, right? So there's only so much you can do to prevent, and people that have had spent their whole lives out in the sun, they're potentially going to get one of these. And the idea is just to find it early. Mm-hmm. So I think the biggest thing is go get skin checks, do self-checks, try and educate yourself. I mean, we could go into that if you want to, but educate yourself on what cancers look like and what you're looking for on your body, because a lot of people will find their own. But if you want to go into the other fun stuff, yes, lasers can be helpful. There are some resurfacing lasers. There's many different brands and types that do it that are going to help repair some of that actinic or solar damage on the skin and be sort of preventative. And then there's also this procedure called photodynamic therapy, which is, when you talked about profractional, or there's like refraxel laser, those are generally considered more cosmetic. I mean, you're going to get the benefit that we were talking about with the sun damage, but most people are going to have to pay out of pocket for those because people are going to get those just to look nicer too. But because it's anti-aging.
Yeah, the place I go to feels more like a spa than a doctor's office.
But photodynamic therapy is actually something that can be covered by your insurance. And that's where we put like a photo activator on your skin that absorbs into those damaged skin cells and turns into a photolabile kind of particle that is then activated by a light source, either usually red or blue, and it destroys the precancer damage on your skin. So you get like a medical peel, basically. It's not fun.
Is it painful?
People, yes.
Is it more painful than the laser?
Everyone's different with this one. Yeah. Because it's kind of a unique experience. Part of it is you have this really bright light. I mean, you're wearing eye protection, but you have this really bright light really close to you that's causing like this terrible burning sensation. And so some people feel kind of claustrophobic. Yeah. That burning sensation can be brutal. Depending on what light source you're doing it, you're sitting there for 7 or 16 minutes, 50 seconds. And that can feel like hell when you're on fire like that. Yeah. Versus some of the laser procedures are like so fast, and it's not your whole face burning at once. It's like they kind of go over a spot. So by the time one spot's like unbearable, you're onto a new spot. Yeah, this is kind of just full face burn off but I have everyone's different. Because there's so many different ways you can treat photo damage or do what's called field therapy. And I have patients that love this light treatment and want to do one twice a year. I have people that say
they like it for the aesthetic benefits, or
there is a little aesthetic benefit too. Are
they masochists that enjoy the pain?
Maybe, I don't know. But they really, a lot of people, there are people that are our age that will have this much, but people, when they have a lot of photo damage, their skin is going to start to feel really rough and sandy and just kind of not healthy anymore. And when you have this peel, you get this sort of baby skin sort of reset where your skin feels really smooth. It just feels healthier. It looks healthier. And so people kind of get addicted to that. Like they'll start to feel that roughness come back because it always will. and they'll be like, I want to do another light treatment.
Yeah. How long do the benefits of that last?
It depends on the person.
Okay.
Like I said, some people can benefit from it every 6 months. Some people I'll put them through once, and then we won't have to do another one for a few years.
Huh.
So, and I have some young people that just have minimal damage that still want to do it, just to kind of, and it'll find stuff that you don't necessarily see or feel yet under the surface, and they'll get a benefit for a really long time.
So to get it covered by insurance, I know obviously you can only speak to this to a certain extent, but is that something where just your dermatologist would say, like, we recommend this, and then it's likely to get picked up?
Yeah, this patient has actinic keratoses or actinic damage, which are those precancerous spots, and then you put that diagnosis code in for the procedure and usually get it approved. It's pretty universal. I mean, it's rare. I have somebody that doesn't have that covered.
Yeah.
It's actually used in Europe it's approved to treat basal cells.
Huh.
Red light, PDT.
Should I be doing this instead of the laser?
You should probably, well, it depends on what your goals are.
Yeah. I'm more interested in not getting the Mohs surgery. I would like to avoid that as much as possible.
Yeah. Then I mean, PDT is great.
Yeah.
I mean, even if people are looking for aesthetic improvement, I mean, people that are really sun damaged will get aesthetic improvement just with that, and they'll look better just from a medical procedure. And so when people are debating, it's like, well, I kind of want to do a fractal too. I said, well, you have enough damage. Like, let's treat and clear up this damage, and you might be really happy with how your skin looks and feels just from cleaning up the damage.
Yeah.
So
yeah, those lasers are a motherfucker. Like, I can't leave the house for a week. I look like Freddy Krueger for a long time. Like,
yeah, they can get bad. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's it for my trail specific questions, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask a few aesthetic based questions, because I imagine a lot of your practice is people that just want to come in and look better, right? Or some of your practice.
I was about to say, I'm mostly medical, so most of my day is skin cancer screenings, treating skin cancer, and then treating other medical derm issues like acne, psoriasis, eczema, etc. So I'm not as much of a cosmetic provider, but a little bit.
Do most dermatology offices have like a arm that is more of the cosmetic side? Yeah,
usually. I mean, it was part of our training. I mean, we definitely there's training on cosmetics on our boards, and we do a lot of it in residency, so it's just not ended up being part of my main practice per se.
So in addition to obviously doing all the smart prevention things of not getting too much sun or using the proper sun protection strategies, do you have any favorite products in terms of keeping that soft, buttery baby skin?
Right. So my biggest three, just kind of keeping it simple, because where I work and kind of here in your population is that like kind of less is more too, there's a ton of things out there, and you could go into like a huge 8-step routine or something. But I really think the three most important things for me that I recommend regularly are obviously your sunscreen, which we touched on, and then retinoids like a retinol or tretinoin, and then the antioxidant serum like a vitamin C. So those are like my go-tos. So I usually tell people like have a vitamin C serum or antioxidant serum for your morning for kind of protective reasons, and then your retinol of some capacity at night for reparative purposes. So.
Is that the same thing as Retin A?
Retin A is so there's different forms of that vitamin A derivative. Retin A is kind of the most potent prescription form. Okay. And then retinol is one that you can get over the counter.
Do you have a go-to moisturizer?
I float around with moisturizers. My favorite one personally right now, which is not, it's SkinCeuticals Metacell Renewal B3 cream. It's not cheap, but I love it.
And you probably do get a lot of the stuff for free, right?
Not free, but I mean, we'll get to try samples of stuff, but we get wholesale prices, which is nice. So they're not like the markups and everything. Yeah. So that's good. But I really like that moisturizer. I honestly, if you're looking at one just over the counter, I really like the La Roche-Posay brand, which you can get at Target. So that one's got a couple really nice ones. But I really like that the SkinCeuticals one right now.
I think that's it.
Oh.
Thank you for dealing with the hot seat. Do you have any sort of like personal website, or if somebody, what do you have anything that you want to plug?
No.
Your practice? I don't know anything.
No, not really. I mean, the more people, this is a great, like I said, it's Skin Cancer Awareness Month, and it still shocks me how many people don't protect their skin or get it checked out. And we're in the age group too. I mean, it's starting to be time to get involved in this. So no, I don't really have a plug except take care of yourself, you know?
If there was someone in the region, listening in the region that you practice out of, would you want to plug your?
Yeah. Oh, I work at Skin Cancer and Dermatology Institute, which is a big group in Reno, Nevada. They, it's a bunch of us doctors out there, and so come and see us.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Kitty Manno, this has been awesome. I'm sure this will be one that people love, and we'll get a lot of follow-up questions. So very appreciative of you sharing your medical insights with us.
Thank you for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Zach.
To today's Trek propaganda, let's go with this one. Former guest of the podcast, Moose Juice, writes why I always carry a bear canister when through hiking. This is definitely a spicy take, as I feel like most thru hikers I know everyone I know carries a bear canister when they're required, and very few carry bear canisters in any other circumstance. But I'm definitely seeing a growing trend in this direction, and I think Moose Juice does an excellent job of outlining the reasons why, including simplicity, camping and comfort, aka you got a built-in camp chair right there with you. And last but certainly not least is it's a million times leave no trace more compliant. So what are you laughing at?
I thought, are these sub points of those points? Or did you only number every other one?
I'm actually just looking at the article right now.
Oh, okay. Because it says 1, simplicity. 2, there's no bullet for 2. Then it says 3, camping comfort. Then there's no bullet point. Then it says 5.
Yeah, you'll have to ask Rachel on that one. But
that's funny.
I think the thinking is we want to leave them hungry to actually go. If you give them, what's the saying? If you give them
why buy the cow?
If you're getting the milk
when
for
you
free.
can get the milk for free.
Yeah, so you got to not give away all the milk.
Zach's motto.
Yeah, we'll give you a little bit of cheese, but not.
You can have a little of Zach's milk, but not all of it.
Just a taste. All right. Today's question of the day. This feels like it's got to be you.
No, but I actually have donated my hair several times, so I'm all about this. Maybe this was me. I don't know. My niece wants to know, if she donates her hair to Locks of Love and the recipient of her hair commits a crime and leaves hair at the crime scene, will her DNA be found all over the crime scene and thus incriminate her? She's 12.
First of all, very thought-provoking question. That 12-year-old needs to be protected at all costs because that's future president or head of the FBI or something important.
I would think yes. Her DNA will be found all over the crime scene.
I don't know how it could be anything other than yes.
It has to be yes.
So I guess this just goes to show that if you're going to donate your hair, ensure that the recipient lives far away, because you'll need a strong alibi. And if like the murder happened 2 states down, you're clean. But if it's like within the county, you're probably going to prison.
I would love to know if anyone has been wrongly incarcerated.
Yeah.
For
convicted
because of their donated hair. Surely it's had to have happened once.
Yeah. I mean,
it can't have never happened. If you're
out there and considering a crime, seems like getting somebody else's hair is a really good front to put on.
Then you can make gloves out of someone else's skin.
Yeah. While you're at it, get somebody else's blood to spray around.
Yes. That's different from the victim.
Yeah, maybe somebody else's semen.
Okay.
Just like tiny vials of all these things, just to really throw off the scent.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe a little bit of fecal matter from somebody else.
That might be hard. Well, there's plenty of porta potties, and there's plenty of privies.
The easiest of the bunch.
If you were to take...
Certainly, hopefully
if you were to skim the top of a privy on the trail and smear it on a crime scene, how many people do you think's DNA?
It's like a whole gaggle of hikers came in here and
the train is moving at 10 miles an hour.
Yeah. What other people's DNAs can you include to throw off the scent?
I feel like if you have someone else's eyes, you could do one of those eye scanners.
Yep.
Or the face scanners.
Oh, I thought you were suggesting to leave the eyeballs at the scene.
No,
of the
no.
crime.
How sometimes things scan your face.
Yeah, totally. Leave a shoe behind that is not your shoe size.
Mm-hmm.
We learned in the OJ trial, if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Yes.
Same with the shoe, I imagine.
Or you could custom make the bottoms of your shoes into a smaller print of a smaller pair of shoes.
Yeah.
So that when you walk, the print it leaves is of a smaller, different modeled shoe.
Yeah. Good. Well,
Settled.
You've gotten all your murder tips
Yes.
from Backpacker Radio. You're welcome.
Also, I've heard from hairdressers that Wigs for Kids is actually a lot better of an organization to donate hair to, as someone who has frequently, whenever I cut my hair from long to short, donated it. Apparently, it's better than Locks of Love. So if you are donating your hair, look into Wigs for Kids.
There you go.
And do your own research, because I didn't really research this.
And according to my stats, kids are a little bit less likely to murder, so might be a safer donation too.
Maybe.
Yeah. Thing of the week. Should I do an update on this Denver orbital trail? I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't want to.
No, because you haven't quit yet. And last time we said surely you would have quit.
Yeah. It's crossed my mind quite a bit. My question here is, should we save this and do an episode about it? Because I'm going to do it. I've committed to doing it. I'm going to do it.
I would love just a brief update, because your mindset has changed from the last time we spoke. Why?
Well, part of it is, so apparently one of the sections isn't even hikeable until August because it's closed for a raptor migration or breeding, something.
I like to think it's velociraptors.
It probably is, next to Dinosaur Ridge. But yeah, so I won't be able to complete this until the end of the summer if I'm doing the correct route. The website suggests that there's another route that you could take, but I'm going to buy the book guy. I want to do it the right way. But that has kind of freed me up because I'm realizing this is a million times better to do in the fall.
Yeah.
One, going through all these green spaces where there's a lot of trees to actually catch some of the foliage is nice. Being in Denver in the heart of the summer
sucks.
It was really bad.
Yeah.
Like today was a relatively cool day and it was still 90 degrees outside.
It was 92 when I drove here at 4 p.m.
And I also forgot in my planning of doing this that basically every day during the summer there's ozone warnings, high ozone levels in the city.
Yeah, we have the brown cloud.
Yeah. And the last time I did like a strenuous endurance workout in a high ozone day, I actually was running on the Colorado Trail and I got pneumonia. So
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. No, we should do a full episode because like who runs the website? Who is the
we should reach out to that guy. He's some local engineer.
Yeah, let's get him on to talk about it with you. Other notable things before you move on. Have you seen any new wildlife? Any more foxes eating snakes?
No. Yes, actually.
Really?
So there's an underpass. This is like the section just to the north of Commerce City, where I have to pull up the video because this is the craziest thing. They look like wasp hives almost, with a hole about the size of the circumference of this mic, and
glory hole for birds.
Whoa. I'm not exaggerating. It was close to 1,000 of these things at the top of a underpass, like so on the underside of a bridge, with countless birds just flying in and out.
Are they human created? It seems like a way to save birds.
No. So these are shit. I knew what they were. I'll have to look it up again. Let me. Pulling up the video, which is going to be of no use to anyone except for Chance.
You can put it on the Patreon.
Yeah, we'll put this on the Patreon. Look at that.
Whoa.
Bird nests? And I don't know what bird this is.
I feel like swallows use
That's
these.
what it is.
Swallows. Is it?
Yeah.
That's so smart.
Cave swallows, specifically.
Wow. That's some nature right there.
Yeah. So this was at the end of like a 20-mile day where I hadn't really seen any wildlife at all. I mean, I shouldn't say any, nothing of note. Yeah, that was the first time I encountered that. I'm estimating probably close to 1,000 of those nests right there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I think the way that I'm gonna have to make it exciting for myself from here on out, because there's one tiny mountain section left, but otherwise the rest of it's gonna be flat. Is I'm gonna have at least every section that I do is gonna have to incorporate like a restaurant or something.
And what if you get yourself a donut?
I did that twice now. I went to Lamar's twice. There's a section right by Stanley Lake next to Lamar's, and I started there and hiked toward Golden and away from Golden. Got a donut each time. But yeah, the I did 21 miles clockwise from that section, and it was just brutally boring. It was bad. It was bad. I ran as much of it as I could comfortably do, and I want to get it over with.
Maybe when you're towards the Denver side, I'll bring you some trail magic. I'll bring you a donut to an intersection and throw it at you from the window of my car.
I'm not going to say no to that. But if you look at the map, I don't get close to you at all.
No, I know.
Yeah.
It would be quite the drive.
Yeah. But yeah, I think I'm trying to rethink this thing, because first of all, I don't have to do this. I'm choosing to do this. Zach, you're choosing to do this. You want to do this. But also, I think the purpose of this trail is to see the greater Denver area, not to have like the best wilderness experience, obviously. So just trying to reframe my mind a little bit on it. But yeah,
now imagine you still had your parking lot photography job and you could photograph parking lots while going.
Listen, it's multiple birds with one, doing both of my jobs at once.
Yeah.
That's how you get wealth. Yeah.
Cool.
I did
surprising.
do about 10 miles today though. Around the Chatfield Reservoir. That was a cool section.
Yeah.
I think that might be the last cool part, though.
Chatfield's cool.
Yeah. Cool. We're doing the Triple Crown of dog breeds. We weren't sure if we've done this one before, but we're going to say no, and it's too important of a topic to not run the risk of doing it multiple times.
Mine's going to be very predictable for my first one.
Yeah.
Australian Shepherd. I didn't know much about them prior to Harper, and I had done a lot of research about what kind of dog I was going to get, because as someone who grew up terribly allergic to dogs and still has allergies to some kinds of dogs, I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to mess this up. And I actually almost adopted an Australian Shepherd on the Appalachian Trail. We were going through Tennessee, and someone had done trail magic. Maybe it was Virginia. Someone had done trail magic, and they had this like super sweet Australian Shepherd with them. And they said they had found it and that they were going to take it to the shelter like in a week, and they were going to give it to me. And I had to have that adult conversation with myself of, yes, I could hike to Maine with this dog, but I don't know what I'm doing when I get back from the trail.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get a dog with that kind of question mark around it. Safe, responsible pet ownership.
Yeah, well done.
But I knew that I wasn't having the allergies that usually instantly trigger hives or anything like that with them. That was a good sign.
Is that because their hair is not oily?
It's typically the really short-haired dogs. A really short-haired dog will still give me hives for some reason. I don't know why. It seems backwards. But the more I researched them, I found, okay, they are Velcro dogs. They always stick by your side. They don't like to not know where you are, which is great for long distance hiking, because if you do let them off leash in an area that doesn't have a lot of people, you don't have to worry about them running, which is good because I'll save that one because I'll put that on my list. Another option I had on my list was not that way. Mm-hmm. And I had done the Colorado Trail with an ex who had a dog. And for anyone who followed that on YouTube, I had to carry the dog for a lot of the trail because it did not do well at high altitudes. And Australian Shepherds apparently are notoriously good at high altitudes. So I thought, with their ability to do big miles being a herding dog, with the fact that they like to stick to the pack being a herding dog, the fact that they're good at elevation, and that I wasn't having allergies to them, all signs pointed to that being the superior dog.
Yeah, of course. Does she do well in heat?
She doesn't love it. Like when we did the AT stretch with her, she was laying down whenever there was shade.
Yeah. No, that's the one thing I've struggled with trying to hike with Sierra is, anything like over 72 degrees. Like she'd rather hike in 0 degrees than 70 degrees.
Yeah. She's good for example, when we did the 75 miles of the Colorado Trail, that was in August, I think, and she was great on that, but it is cooler at those elevations. But typically, if I take her somewhere, I don't want it to be the center of the day in Denver.
Yeah. My first pick is going to be somewhat obvious, but also Belgian Malinois mutt. Specifically that, Sierra is the best. I've actually never had her DNA tested. I'm just speculating that she's Belgian Malinois based on her appearance and mannerisms. But apparently Belgian Malinois are now, they're either becoming or have already become the most popular breed for police dogs. Wickedly smart. Like, I can talk to Sierra like she's a person. We've got 2 dogs at the house. One of them's very smart, one of them's very dumb. So like, I get the full spectrum on dog intelligence. But like, I can tell her in English to do something and she'll do it. Make me coffee, maybe not that part. But yeah, she's brilliant. They're insane athletes. Like, if you want to just blow an hour of your time, go on YouTube and watch like Belgian Malinois jumping up shit. Like, they're Spider-Man. Like, they do things that shouldn't be possible.
Okay.
Ruthlessly loyal. They're just, they're the best dogs. They're not always the best to other people. They're very skeptical of new people. They're not like a golden retriever where everyone's their best friend. Like, when I'm walking down the path and someone who wants to pet Sierra, she always cowers away. She's never aggressive, but she's also like, she has zero interest in people touching her aside from her people. She's the greatest dog of all time.
Okay.
Number 2, geez, if I didn't have Sierra, what would I get? Not Ruby. I think I would go with, I feel somewhat conflicted on this, but I do love these dogs, French Bulldogs.
Okay.
The biggest knock on them, I think they have notorious health issues.
Yeah.
So you're just signing yourself up for large vet bills and sadness. But one, adorable. They're like pugs without the odd caricature that God put into their faces. They've always got hilarious personalities. I feel like the few French Bulldogs I've known they're like the class clown. They're always funny. They make you chuckle. And apparently they're good dogs in like any environment. You can have them in apartments or like a house with like a large yard, and they'll go get their energy out. So yeah, they're adaptable. They can work for anybody, especially people with money, because they get health problems.
Okay.
Like, insuring dogs like that gets very expensive, to my knowledge.
I had a brief Bernese Mountain Dog love when I met a puppy that a person had gotten, and I instantly went the other way when I found out they live for 6 to 8 years, because 6 to 8 years, 6 years is, you just start.
That's cruel.
You're just starting.
It is cruel. Yeah.
And I'm not a strong enough person to mentally handle that.
We have friends that had their burner live to be, I think, 11.
Yeah.
But they always were careful with what they fed her. Like,
Yeah.
she had specialty dog food, and this dog was the biggest chow hound of all time. So like, they gave it 1 cup of food every single day, no table scraps, and it lived to be 11, healthy, happy. Yeah.
My second one is going to be a husky. This is the dog I almost got. Reason I didn't being that they are runners and escape artists. So you can't really trust them off leash, which would make it very difficult to go camping and to go hiking and to do all these things if I absolutely had to make sure that they were on a leash at all times, not just to be a good person in society, but to make sure that I would keep my dog. And that was the deal breaker for me. However, huskies are amazing. They're so funny. So funny.
Love how talkative they are.
Yeah, and they're very soft. They do great in colder climates. I'm just saying things I know about this dog. Real reason I liked huskies a lot was when I went through a very sad time after like a more significant breakup. I just like wasn't doing great, not because of the breakup, but just that's how I mark the phase.
Sure.
Was not doing great, right? And I started getting these dreams where I had, and this is when I was still trying to figure out, am I still allergic to dogs or not? And I started getting these dreams, like reoccurring dreams, where I had a husky named Milkshake, and me and Milkshake would go on these adventures. And I would get so upset when I'd wake up because it was where I was actually happy, and in the real world I wasn't. But I would get excited to go to bed because I'd be like, I wonder if Milkshake is coming back. And Milkshake would keep coming back to these dreams. So me and Milkshake went on all kinds of adventures together. And I was like, that's it. When I get a dog, I'm getting a husky. I'm naming it Milkshake. And we are going on adventures together. And then the practical side of me had to actually consider what breed I got.
Yeah. You should still name a future dog Milkshake.
It's a great dog name.
That's a really good dog
name. Holy. I'm
showing Chance a video of a Belgian Malinois climbing a tree.
He is up the tree.
Like a mountain lion.
How does he get down? He's not going to land that.
Oh, he will. He's going
to hurt himself.
He's a ruthless athlete. Nothing hurts him.
It didn't show him landing.
No, it definitely exploded into a million pieces when
Someone
he got down.
Caught him.
But yeah, Belgian Malinois are freak athletes.
Wow. Oh, my third one.
Yeah.
This I could take a lot of different ways. I'll pick one. I'm going to go with Cocker Spaniel. And the way I could have taken it a lot of different ways is that I think any dog with long, floppy ears is a good dog. And that's all I have to say about that.
Floppy ears is good. What other breeds have long, floppy ears?
Beagles.
Yeah.
Basset Hounds.
Basset Hounds was the one I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Those dogs stink.
Yeah, and yeah. Yes, well, I view dogs sometimes the way I view babies, which is that if it's not mine, it's not as cute.
Yeah.
And sometimes old dogs kind of freak me out if they're not mine.
Yeah.
Which makes me feel like a terrible person, but sometimes they do. And there was a girl I knew who had 2 really old Basset Hounds. God, I hope she doesn't listen, but they kind of freaked me out a bit.
Were they stinky?
I didn't smell them. But
we have a family member that used to have Basset Hounds, and they were very stinky. I don't know if it's the breed or if it's just like they didn't
how
get
often
bathed
you
or
groom
whatever.
it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think petting a long floppy dog ear is the best.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you could just play with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Long floppy dog ears.
No argument here. My last one, I'm gonna go with a blue heeler.
Okay.
These dogs, similar to your pup, Australian Shepherds, are just crazy smart. Our former next door neighbor had 2 of them, present tense, and they're so smart that they just go walking everywhere with the dogs off leash.
Mm-hmm.
And dogs never leave their sides. Like, they're the most well-behaved dogs I've ever seen. And my aunt growing up also had blue heelers. That dog was wickedly smart. Like, I know that this is a trait of them, but to see it in person and the things that they can do that other dogs struggle with. Like, Sierra's very smart, but I can't take her somewhere busy off leash because she'll just be curious, run up to them, do things you don't want her to do. Heelers are like amazingly disciplined dogs.
There was a blue heeler in my bubble in the desert on the PCT, and that dog was great. Great dog.
Bold move to bring a dog on the PCT.
It was a service dog.
Oh, okay.
And so they really worked the hike around the dog. They did not hike in the middle of the day. They did low miles. Yeah, I think they were good dog owners. Yeah. But yeah, it's a great dog. Honorable mentions. I don't know how to say this word. It's the spotty dog. It's like a Catalua.
Oh, I know what you're talking
about. I saw one of these on the AT. Catahoula. Those have very pretty features.
Yeah.
They've got these nice little spotty coats.
Yeah. I'm going to go with the Great Dane.
Okay.
That's another one. To your earlier point, it's tough because you're basically leasing a dog. They don't live very long. But every Dane that I've known is just like the sweetest animal of all time. And just their size is something to behold. When you see a large Great Dane, it's like, that is a beautiful, amazing creature. I wish he would live longer.
What are those dogs that look like they belong in Scotland and they should be wearing like a tartan coat?
Don't know if I'm following what you're putting down right now.
Scottish dog. This one. What's that? Not that one, but that one.
Oh, terrier of some kind.
Yeah, those are really cute.
Yeah.
Those are just big enough to not be a small dog.
Saying. It looks like it should have a bow tie.
Well, I mean, even this one's got tartan on it. It's like that plaid.
Yeah, there you go.
But I don't love small dogs. I like dogs when they're small.
Yeah.
That's very different than small dogs.
Yeah.
And I think these are just big enough to leave the small dog category,
Sure.
and they're just great.
Sure. We could do this all day. I'm going to do my last honorable mention as a lab. Just classic. They're nice. They're the most trusting. They're generally well behaved. They're just kind of like the prototypical good boy dog.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be any gender, but when you
Labs
say
are
good
great.
boy, yeah.
These are called Scottish Terriers. Who would have known?
Oh, okay.
Golden Retrievers.
Yeah. Similar to a lab.
Yeah.
Just the happiest, go luckiest
Yeah.
dogs of all time.
I used to, when I was really little, when I was like coming off the school bus from kindergarten, instead of going home, I used to go to my neighbor Chunja's house. She had a dog that was a golden retriever named Corey, and I used to play with the dog like crazy. Again, very allergic as a kid. And I'd go home just like sneezing and needing a bath. And there would be times that it would be dinner time. My mom would have to call Chunja's house phone and be like, is Julia there? She never came home from school.
Yeah.
And I'd be rolling around her backyard with this dog.
Yeah. They're kind of like the inverse of a pit bull, right? Like a pit bull accounts for like 10% of dogs and is like 90% of fatalities for other pets and human beings. And golden retrievers are like 90% of dogs and account for none of that.
Golden retrievers are sweet little
They're
cuddlies.
very
And I like
sweet.
when their fur matches my hair.
Yeah.
Like when we're the same color.
Yeah.
I'm like, we are one. You are me. I am you.
Are you aware of the Golden and Golden Fest or whatever it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of my friends have Goldens.
Yeah. I've never been, but a recent Uber driver of mine was like, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened. You have to go.
Yeah.
This is why I exist. So I guess I'll go in the future year. Sweet. Well, I'm looking forward to listener submissions on this one.
Mm-hmm.
We always have knowledgeable folks giving us the lowdown on why X, Y, or Z is the best. So I want to hear your favorite dog breeds and more importantly, why. We got a new 1-star trail review.
Yes. This is for the Appalachian Trail.
Yeah.
Zebulon Pike says, had to walk miles just to find a bathroom. There was dirt everywhere, no wheelchair access, and all the people looked and smelled like they hadn't showered for days.
Love it.
There's another one.
Yeah. Oh, there's two?
Yeah.
2 1-star reviews. I lost the show notes. I was looking at something. This is from Andrew McDaniel. Familiar name. 1 star. Long AF. Did we do that one at the live podcast?
I don't think so.
Okay. Actually, I'm going to bring up an old segment is 1 minute gear review for this Denver loop hike that I've been doing. I've had these shoes forever and I've just never worn them. I don't know why. But they are, I don't even know what model it is, but that's almost irrelevant to the conversation here. Ultra has a shoe that uses the BOA lacing technology.
Oh,
You know what I'm talking about?
that thing with the laces.
The thing that spins
Yeah.
to that like
Click, 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 click,
yeah,
click,
that's
click.
on like ski boots and shit. I'm seeing it now. It's the Ultra Mont Blanc BOA trail running shoe. Apparently it retails for $210, so probably not worth it at that price point. But fuck if I don't love these things. To never have to worry about tying your shoe is such a game changer.
Yeah, I don't tie my shoes.
We've talked about this before.
Every now and then I have to, but if you
Yeah.
tie the knots tight enough, you can get that slide in and out good.
That's the thing that I struggle with is I like a tighter shoe, and there's no way I can get it to my satisfaction of tightness without untying it.
So that was what I was going to ask, but then I thought maybe that was a me thing, is are you able to tighten it responsibly and stop when it's good, or do you need it to tighten like as much as it'll go before you can't?
On the BOAs,
Yeah.
I find that when I'm on trail, I tend to retighten them. So I don't tighten them aggressively enough at home.
Interesting.
And then once I'm moving, I'm like, all right, I need a couple more clicks.
See, that's my one problem is I can't stop. I'm like, will it go one more click?
Yeah. It is fun. When I come home from these and I'm wearing those shoes, I let Leo undo it, and then he just plays with the shoe for the next like half hour. He loves playing with the BOA shoe. But yeah, $210 is an insane price point. But if you're next week's guest, that doesn't matter. Price is not an object.
There you go.
Nice little hint for you guys. Chauncey's getting tired. I can see it in her eyes.
No, I'm not. I'm so lively.
That's perfectly fine. I think we're getting to the end of the segments. 5-star review.
We're skipping mailbag?
Nope, mailbag.
So I found your podcast on Spotify a couple months ago and decided to start listening from episode 1. I just finished episode 100 and just wow. Ha ha ha. The interview with Jennifer Farr Davis and Drew Davis on Brew.
And it says Drew.
They wrote Drew.
Yeah.
Brew Davis on the hotel bathroom floor was great, but shenanigans with the Gingers and Viking was hilarious. I was laughing out loud with my one AirPod in while laying in the dirt under a bulldozer. I'm a heavy equipment field mechanic in Ohio. Side note here, when you guys say shit like this, like that I was laying under a bulldozer, just like the guy who was like working on a fishing boat, I would love to see a photo of this.
Yeah, sure.
Like, please get one of your other heavy equipment guys to put down the heavy equipment and pick up the phone and take a photo and send it to us, because I like to picture what this probably looks like.
Let's get visual.
I dream about the day I can do some through hiking. Thank you for keeping me company at work since I'm typically working alone. When I get the chance to hike the AT, maybe Zach can join me and finally hike the AT. Austin.
That's how you can tell it's an old school email.
Yeah.
I feel like the Zach AT drink has kind of fallen off, which I'm not hating on. But yeah. Austin, thank you so much for listening. If you guys want to get in touch with us, podcast at thetrek.co or head on over to backpackerradio.com. We have the mailbag form right there for you. 5-star review. This is from NPT1833. Great show. I've been listening for a long time now, and this is my go-to pod for my hikes. Keep up the good work. NPT, you keep up the good work. If you guys want to hear your review read on this podcast, head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us any number of stars, just not 1 through 4. A super big thank you to our Chuck Norris Award winners on Patreon. That is Alex and Misty with Navigators Crafting, Andrew, Austin McDaniel, Austin Ford, Brad and Blair from 13 Adventures, Brent Stenberg, Brian Alsop,
Peebles,
Christopher Marshburn, Coach from Marion Outdoors, Dane,
Ish,
Derek Cook, Eric Casper,
Friendly Ghost,
Eric Hoffman, Greg Knight, Greg McDaniel, Haley Buckingham,
Palace,
Jason Snail,
barely
Snailer,
know her.
shit, Liz Seeger, Patrick Cial.
Zach's getting tired.
I am getting tired. Patrick C. and Cialo, Sawyer Products, Spam, Timothy Hahn,
Solo,
and Tracy Trigger.
Fans.
You can follow us at Backpacker Radio on TikTok and Instagram at Backpacker Pod on X, Facebook.com/Backpacker Radio. You can follow Chance.
I'm posting videos on YouTube at Juliana Chauncey and on Instagram at Juliana_Chauncey. And you can get my book, Hiking from Home, a long distance hiking guide for family and friends, on Amazon. And if you're hiking this year and you don't want to edit your videos, but you want to take videos and have memories to look back at, check out pinkblazepro.com.
Appalachian Trials and Pacific Crest Trials are my books. Would be very grateful for a review if you've got the time. Also, I should give a plug. Katie Jackson has been womaning the CDT Instagram account for us. So it's continentaldivide.trail. She's been doing a great job, so definitely go follow that account and give her a shout out.
What does that mean that she's been womaning it?
She's just been the person behind the wheel there. So she not only is she posting other people's CDT content, but she's also doing some first person stuff as well.
Oh, she's on the CDT.
Yeah.
While running the account.
Yep.
That's cool.
That was her idea too. She's very creative.
Yeah.
Subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on YouTube.
Hi, Internet.
What's up, YouTube? And that is it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening, and happy hiking.
Bye.